Welcome to another Mac the Hobbyist video. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how I plan on achieving financial independence and retiring early. This is based on an audiobook that I listened to on a flight back from Washington, D.C. It was based on this book, How to Achieve Financial Independence and Retire Early by J.D. Roth. And this is also an accumulation of all of the information that I've consumed over the years. So this is a process that's been going around for about 3 years, and I'm kind of just putting everything together and about how I plan on achieving some financial independence. And this isn't financial advice. I don't tell you to do exactly what I plan on doing, but in this video, I just want to lay out like what I plan on doing, and maybe you can take some insights from this video. So first of all, let's define what is financial independence and why do I want to achieve this. So this is the probably most important question of this video because some people enjoy their job so much that they will work 40 years of their life, which is totally fine. They will graduate when they're 22 from college and they'll work until they're 65. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that if people enjoy their life, enjoy their work so much that they want to spend that for the rest of their life. That is awesome. The more power to them. My biggest thing is if you spend 8 hours a day at a job and your coworkers end up being the people that you spend the most time with rather than your family. So my biggest motivations are giving me freedom of what I want to do in my free time, and not having to listen to a job that's telling me what to do. And like in the future, when I have kids, I'll be able to spend the most time with them. I won't have to worry about staying work late, working on the weekends, other stuff like that to just get by. So if I can lay the foundation now, I can sort of start my life or start my financial independence journey earlier, so I achieve it earlier. So I'll go into the details of how I plan on doing this in this video, but that's kind of like what I want to do. The whole goal of financial independence is you don't need to work, and you could go the rest of your life without needing to work for a paycheck. And I might switch I and you, but I meant I, but like you as in the second tense, so it's kind of confusing. Oh well. But here I have a financial independence spectrum. That's what I wanted to put it here. So on the left side is the most traditional path where you work consistently from the time that you graduate college to the time that you retire. It's about 40 years. So that's if you plan on retiring at 65. This is no FIRE. Should probably say that FIRE stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. Financial Independence and Retire Early. Um, yeah, I should probably clear that up. Um, on the spectrum here, I want to talk about the different types of FIRE because financial independence, retire early, has many different definitions for lots of different people. So, for example, uh, Coast FIRE here is where you get enough money to where you don't need to invest anymore, but you should still keep your job excuse me, for the stable income. Um, this is like if you get to $1 million net worth, you don't need to contribute anything more because, well, let's just say you have a $2 million net worth and those investments are gaining 7% every single year. That means that you are making $140,000 um, in investment gains every single year. So ideally, you won't need to invest anymore, and your investments will outgrow what you are spending in 1 year. So as long as you spend less than like $110,000 per year, then you are in Coast Fire. Lean Fire is you can stay retired as long as you keep your expenses low. So like what I said, if you get to like $1 million and if you keep your spending below, let's just say 30 grand per year, that means that your investments will invest, let's say $70,000 that year, and you spend 30,000. As long as you keep your expenses low, then you can go the rest of your life without um, working again. The fourth one here is FIRE. This is the normal retire with normal expenses. Say you spend $80,000 a year, you'll be able to spend $80,000 per year for the rest of your life and without having to go back to a job. And then the last one is the FAT FIRE. This is like total spending freedom. You can spend your money on like whatever you want to do. You're entirely rich in when it comes to your finances, and you can travel the world. You can spend money on expensive cars. You can sort of do whatever you want. But I will say there's a caveat here. It's you want to build a fulfilling life that's outside of money. You want to use your money as a tool here. So having more money is not necessarily going to give you more freedom if you don't know how to fill your time up with things that are not fulfilling to you. Next thing I want to talk about is fire is a life design problem and not just a money problem. This is what I was just talking about. You want to retire to something and not from something. So for me personally, I want to retire from doing, or I want to retire to creating and doing creative things and building projects in my free time. And I am retiring from my job, but that is not the main contributor to me wanting to gain financial independence. So this is sort of an overview of like um, the psychology behind financial independence. And so now I want to talk about how I actually plan on getting there. So the math of financial independence. So my fire number is a little bit more conservative because the last thing that I want to do is run out of money when I retire. So the way that I will calculate my fire number is my annual expenses times the number of years left in my life. So this is, let's just say that I spend $60,000 per year and I retire at 40, meaning I plan on living another 40 years till I'm 80, fingers crossed. I would need about 2.4 million to get to that number, and then I won't have to work again as long as I spend less than $60,000 per year. And just like I was saying earlier, how if you get a bigger return than what you spend, this is a sustainable way of retiring and you spending your money. So the book and lots of other resources online, YouTubers will tell you that it should be your annual expenses divided by your safe withdrawal rate. It's kind of confusing because your safe withdrawal rate is like a percentage, so you're dividing by a percentage, and it's kind of confusing, so you're actually multiplying. But here they use let's just use the 4% rule. This is what is generally known as the safest way to retire. You take your annual expenses, let's say it's 60,000, divide it by 0.04, and that gets you to 1.5 million. But yet this is again assuming that the 4% rule is made for 25 years of retirement, whereas my number assumed 40 years of retirement. You would need 1.5 million. If I were to do a similar percentage rule for the 40-year, like 4% rule, it would probably get me to a similar number, but this is just for me specifically. Okay, so my time to financial independence is dependent on my savings rate and less on my income. So the goal here is to keep my expenses low and grow my income over time so that the difference between my expenses and my income grows. So all of the gap in between there, I'll be able to invest over time. So what's really cool about this is, let's just say that you make $100,000 per year and every single year you spend $50,000 per year. So your savings rate is 50%. Well, let's just say that you get a raise and you are making 110% per year. If you keep your expenses the same at 50,000, but you're making 110,000, your savings rate actually increases from 50% to like 60 or 55 to 60%, depending on the numbers. So if you keep increasing your income but keep your expenses the same, this will increase your savings rate. And so I wrote out here graphically, or tabularly, that 10% is going to take you about 50 years. If you save 10% of your money every single year, it's going to take you about 50 years to retire, which is not ideal. Um, this is a 50% savings rate, which means that if you save 50% of your money, um, you'll be able to retire in 17 years. This is supposed to be 17 years. And if you save 70% of your money, then you can retire in 8 to 10 years. So as you can see here, the more that you save, the quicker that you can retire, which obviously makes sense. But I think that having this as a table allows you to put things in perspective. Now, as for my money mindset, um, my financial behavior and anyone's financial behavior is driven by psychology and not necessarily math. So I read this book, and I believe that it was this book called Money for Couples by Ramit Sethi, Money Scripts. And these are just things that people have internally, which is which influences the way that they treat money. So this could be based on childhood experiences, or maybe they've had financial burdens in the past. Hi, editor Malcolm here. I would encourage you to look up Rumi Sethi's money scripts. I won't go over the specifics, but I would fall under the
The
optimizer
whole
category.
overarching point of money, in my opinion, is to buy things that fulfill me and bring me joy and remove all of the expenses that don't fulfill me or bring me joy. The goal here is to have a pillar of life where the values, my spending habits, and long-term goals are on the bottom, and they all align to give me a fulfilling life. That is the goal of this graphic here. The fourth thing is I want to spend less than I earn. This is pretty simple, but the gap is your income minus your expenses. The bigger the gap that you have, the more wealth that you can build. And I think a key thing to talk about here is conscious spending. With what I was talking about here, you want to align your values, your spending, and long-term goals. So Ramith, again, he talks about how you want to use your money to build a fulfilling life. So you need to buy things or spend your money on things that fulfill you. So like for me, that'd be going on trips. Um, well, trips are the main thing, obviously, but then also saving money so that I can invest it for my future. And then that aligns with my long-term goals of wanting to travel the world, wanting to achieve financial independence and retire early. And then my values is kind of falls into not spending money on things that I don't need. So I don't enjoy necessarily going out to eat. A lot of times I think that is too expensive because you end up paying like 3 to 4 times as much on going out to eat than what it actually costs to buy the food and prepare it yourself. So obviously you're paying for a service. I get that. But I try to keep eating out to a minimum, and I try not to go out to eat like during lunch. I think that is like one of the biggest things is like if you spend $10 every single day, let's just say that you spend $15 per meal on lunch every single day at work, and you work, let's just say 250 days a year. That is almost $4,000 of money that could have been saved, invested, etc., just by um, preparing food the night before or just meal prepping the day of after you cooked everything. I think those small little things can add up over time. Let's just say that you're making $100,000 per year and you're spending $4,000 per year on just lunch food. You're spending 4% of your income just on lunch food, and that is just a small facet of your life, maybe like an hour or two per day that you could be paying yourself in the future by not spending that money. That was kind of a rant, but I want to spend my money on things that give me the most pleasure in life, and spending money on things that I don't need does not bring me joy. The fifth thing is managing eliminating debt. Luckily, I don't have any debt, but if you were in that sort of situation, I would say that paying off your 20% debt is a guaranteed 20% return, which will beat the stock market in almost any year. So I would definitely pay off the high interest debt if you have any. So the sixth thing I want to talk about is building smart saving habits. So one thing I like to say is pay yourself first, so that before you see all of the money that you make from your paycheck, let's just say you make $1,000 per week. If you are taking out 10% of that, you aren't seeing 1,000, you're seeing 900. So you're really paying your future self by not spending that extra $100. So one way that you can do this is to automate your retirement contributions and investments. Right now, the Roth IRA contribution amount is $7,000 per year. So I have an automated transfer from my savings account to my Roth IRA of $665 every single month. That adds up to $7,000, I believe, per year. And then I just invest that from there. Ideally, you'd automate investments, but for me, I can't because I use Charles Schwab. If there's anyone out there that is able to do your investments, then definitely do that. But for the hierarchy of what I'm doing with my money, I need to work on this 3 to 6 months of emergency fund. But since I'm 23 years old, I can still sort of depend on my parents. Like if bad things happened tomorrow, I would be able to rely on them. But the goal is to have a 3 to 6 months buffer emergency fund that would cover all of my housing expenses, all my food expenses, all of the necessities in order to get me by if I were to hit a rough period like that, is to contribute to retirement accounts. So 401k, a lot of these already come out of your contributions via your employer. That's what mine do at least. And then the Roth IRA, invest in that. Definitely invest in the Roth IRA because it's a tax advantaged account, and you know that when the IRS puts a contribution limit on it, then it's a really good thing. So there's a reason that it's only 7,000, because then it'd be basically too much free money out there. The last thing, as I say, the taxable brokerage account. This is taxed income that you put in, and then when you withdraw it, you pay capital gains tax on it when hopefully when you retire. If it's long-term investing, that's what I'm doing. But yeah, this is not the like most optimized account for investing, but it's what I have for now. And then I'd say like below a taxable brokerage is like just a savings account for trips that I want to go on, or like other sorts of personal things that you want to buy. And like what I said earlier, it's much easier to save consistently when it's automated and you never see the money. The seventh thing is, for me, investing is just keep it simple, stupid. The classic KISS acronym. I buy low cost mutual index funds, diversify in international and sectors, and then invest for the long term. I love the quote, time in the market beats timing the market. Other things that I invest in that I do not recommend are individual stocks. These are often very volatile, but generally I only invest in companies that I believe are going to be around like in the long term when my grandchildren are alive, or when my children are alive, sort of a generational amount of time that I think that a company will be profitable, or I guess still around. So like some of the companies I invest in are like Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, just to list a few. There's some other ones in there that are a little more speculative, but I don't recommend that, especially not for retirement. I actually don't invest in any individual funds in my retirement. That is all mutual fund based. Number 8, increasing my income and opportunity. So there's 4 different income levers. First, I can upgrade my skills via work experience, certifications, degrees, other stuff like that to basically get a raise every single year, or whatever your company or whatever my company offers. And then number 2, side hustles, stuff you can do on the side to make money. There's lots of different things that you can do out there. Even like small entrepreneurship opportunities. Career mobility is like how easy is it for my skills to transfer to another job, or how marketable my skills are, or the location that I live in. Some of those other things that I would like to keep in mind when trying to increase my income. And then entrepreneurship is just like starting a business on the side. Here I plan on focusing on high ROI skills. I'm in the tech sector, so I want to increase my technology usage and skills. Increase my communication, because I think that's a big thing in my job personally. Dealing with stakeholders, building software for them. And for negotiation, this is a negotiation in raises, work experience, projects, other stuff like that. And I also want to focus on scaling my income. This means that the amount of income that I receive is not tied to the hours that I work. So ideally, I would be able to work less and make more. But with a simple 9 to 5 job, this isn't necessarily feasible. So it's expanding to other avenues on how I can make make money in other ways. Number 9, designing my ideal life. So fire does not mean retire. Fire means for freedom to choose what I want to do with my time. Before I retire, and ideally as soon as possible, I need to define my purpose, identity, and meaning. Those 3 things are the pillars of fulfillment, in my opinion, and I'm in the process of figuring those things out right now. But since I'm only 23, I'm giving myself some forgiveness there. But I think those are very important when it comes to when I actually retire. And like what I said before, retiring from something is empty and retiring to something is meaningful. All right, to recap, I want to spend money on things that truly fulfill me, keep my expenses low and invest the difference, and grow that gap where the wealth is actually built. My FAIR number is 2.4 million, so I plan on getting to that at some point. My savings rate's about 50%. So based on the table that I put up here, this would get me to about 17 years. This is wrong, not 70. It should be 17. So about by the time I'm 40, I would like to retire. And this is if I if I invest like 5,000 a month every single month for the next 17 years, that'll get me to that 2.4 million, give or take the investment rates and stuff. And the last thing is I need to find a deeper meaning behind why I want to retire. I think I found that, but obviously I'm still giving myself time to do that. But yeah, money is not everything, but it can be used as a tool to give you, or to give myself, a more fulfilling outcome in life. So yeah, thanks for listening to me yap for a little bit here. This is how I plan on retiring early. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me anything in the comments. But yeah, see you later.